Good afternoon to you all. Thank you very much for joining us. This is your Sunday lesson. So we now have a lesson every 2 weeks, so we still hope that you enjoy them. So today is all about valse, which is a topic that is really nice. We're going to talk a little bit about the technique, how to apply that technique, and we'll show a few combinations that work well in valse, as we'll show you in a second. But before, I think you have something to say.
Yes, it's always up to me. Disclaimer. So guys, make sure that you are well enough to attend this class, and note that by joining in any form you are automatically agreeing to the terms and conditions that are stated in the description of this video as well as on the website. Now, having said that, let's have fun with valse.
Alright, so valse is, as you might know already, so this is the first part. By the way, we start with a beginner, an improver for 45 minutes, little break, and second part intermediate and advanced dancers. You can, if you like, fast forward to second part in your video. So a few words about valse. So as you know, valse is one of the 3 types of music that we play at social dancing, at milonga. As you know, we have tango, valse, and milonga. Valse is often referred as tango valse. So I know it's a bit confusing, but this is why we prefer to shorten it to just valse with a V and not a W. And as you may expect, of course, valse is heavily influenced by waltz, which actually was danced earlier than tango. So this is why the immigrants from Europe, when they came to Argentina, they brought waltz in their baggage, sort of speaking. So how do you recognize a waltz? It's all about the time signature. So waltz and then valse was, of course, adapted to tango. Is all about understanding that a beat is not split in 2 but 3 parts. In tango you might want to say it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Note that the and is exactly in between the 1 and the 2, and it notifies the half beat. But in valse it's a bit different, because we are going to split the time before 2 strong beats into 3 parts, and therefore we are going to refer to this as 1, 2, 3, and then again 1. If you really want to mention or to actually discuss the valse in detail, you can actually have reference to the library. But what I would like to say is you can count different ways. The simplest is 1, 2, 3, and then back to the 1, because we go to the next beat. Or you could say, if you like, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. The 1, 2, 3, and 4 referring to where you are in the phrase, because of course in valse you also have phrasing. It's a little bit different, as we'll see, but it's actually very similar to tango. So you could say 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Or you could say just 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So let's have a look at the music. Today we play the getting, and this is the rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Or if you like, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 6, 2, 7, 2, 3, 8, 2, 3, 1. Yeah, so this is a full phrase, 8 beats, as in tango, but slightly different, or very different time signature. Alright. So the way we actually are going to use this time signature is always is going to be on different ways. The first way, of course, is going to just ignore the little notes in between 2 beats and just stay with the beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we just dance as if it was a valse. Of course, it's not the best way. We try to play a little bit when we can with the time signature, but to start, we can actually just stay on the beats. And there are other ways, of course, which are a little bit more interesting in terms of musicality, and it's going to be to play with the strong beats, the 1 in this case, and with the 2 or the 3. So note that if I play with the 1 and the 3, it actually feels a bit that has a bit of syncopation, as in 1, 3, 1. It's not going to be 1, 3, 1, because here is actually in the middle. It's going to be skipping the 2, going from 1 to 3, so this is a longer time, and then between 3 and 1, a shorter one, and you repeat. 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1. Yeah, this is how you can actually play with the rhythm. The other way, of course, is to play with the 2 and ignore the 3. In other words, 1, 2, nothing, 1. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So the syncopation is actually brought earlier in the beats, and therefore the time between 2 and 1 is the longest. So both of them are of course valid, and we are going to show you examples of both, of course, today. So let's have a look at how we start modifying a little bit the technique we have when we dance valse.
Okay, so maybe we can explain that during the walk. Maybe it's a good opportunity.
Okay.
Okay, so let's couple up. Glasses off if you're wearing them. Should we go back a little bit? Okay, so as always here, I am going to be having my intention forward with my center, the intention to the leader. And then what I'm going to feel is that there is a little bit of more of a swing at the hip level. So notice that we are not exaggerating, so it's not exaggerated movement on the hips, but I do feel that the hips are a little bit looser, and it's more of a, how shall I say, it's more of a swing than it would be when we would do it, at least for me, my experience of follow, where I'm receiving from the leader. His tango is going to be more about the projection, a little bit of dissociation, and here is going to be a little bit more freedom at the hip level. So when I receive that, it's also nice for me to mirror that.
So this is exactly what we try to convey as a leader. What we are going to do is have a little bit more mobility of the hips. Note that it doesn't mean that, as Paula mentioned, we exaggerate it. We don't have to go beyond the foot, but there's a little bit more of like a hip leading as opposed to the entire axis. So of course it's subtle, and you might want to practice to make sure that you go a bit to the left, to the right, to the left. How do I do that? By straightening the foot and the leg. I don't arrive on bent knees, because if I arrive on bent knees I can't really play with that. So in order to communicate that swing of the hip a little bit, I'm going to arrive on straight knees, and I'm going to stretch this part or this part depending on if I'm going on the right or left. So if, for example, I'm going to step on the right foot, I'm going to stretch this part here, and this will pull a little bit the hip to the side. Here, yes, so I'm not going completely straight, I'm stretching one part. Note that when I'm stretching one part, I don't collapse the other one, because if you collapse the other part, it's when it becomes too much. Look at this. This is too much, because I collapse this part here, so I'm going to leave this part untouched, but just stretch one part. So it may be that the displacement is only 10% or 15% to the side, but not more. 1, 2. So I feel muscles engaging to the side, one to the other, without collapsing on the other side.
So same thing for us. We are going to sustain the center, so when we have a bit more of a swing of the hip, we are not going to collapse the center, we're still sustaining, but we are a little bit looser at the hip level. And I'm not going to do more than what I'm receiving, so it doesn't create too much of a disconnection, if that makes sense. Should we do music?
So yes, let's do it again to show you. Practice that walk that hip thrust.
Y en los anchos de montes frondosos, no la mira pasar el paisano, vagando en el suelo pampeano, una loca con la vida en paz. Esta
So how is it for you guys? Do you feel that stretch on one side without touching the other side? I hope that it feels good. Remember that if you can't communicate, it might be that one of you is actually too backwards, as in too much this way, backwards with the hips, and too much forward with the chest, and therefore there's no communication at the hip level. So without exaggerating, I'm going to be a tiny bit straighter than in Tango, because I need to communicate also what's happening at the hip level. I insist on the tiny bit, yes, it's not suddenly going forward this way. You kind of maintain your hips, but it's a little bit more center communication. So we'll have a look at one example of a little sequence that we can adapt to valse. Note that a lot of things that we do in Tango can be adapted to valse if we have this little displacement of the hips and we adapt the rhythm as well. A lot of dancers will actually just do what they like to do on half beats, but it's actually, for me, it's not really correct, because it has to be adapted to 1-2-1 or 1-3-1. Have a little bit of syncopation to play with the song, otherwise it will be really fast. So we're going to do a change of weight and a side step. So I'm going to show you the leaders part, and we're going to take a look at the followers part, and we're going to bring it together. Okay? So maybe without
sure, without buckling up.
Okay. So leaders, you're going to go forward on the right in your inner lane, and you're going to change your weight there, and you're going to go back. At this stage, you're going to go sideways, small step, you change in the middle, and you finish here. And then you repeat, because you're on the left, therefore you are able to repeat. So let me do it in a different angle so you can see. So, side, forward, change of weight, back, side, change of weight, and side again. And you repeat, forward, change, back, side, and change, and side. Now, of course, what is interesting here is to adapt to the rhythm of valse. So I'm going to show you first on the beats, and then I'm going to show you how to adapt to the valse rhythm. So the beat would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. But I'm going to use the 3, 1, 3, so I'm going to go, 1, 2, apologies. I'm going to go 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. So here I'm going to do this little acceleration, the syncopation, to use the rhythm of valse. 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. Note that it's very important here that the time to go forward is shorter than the time to go backward, and the time to do the first side step is shorter than the next one. Therefore, I'm going to collect quite quickly. If I do this, we actually lose the effect, of course. 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. And I'm going to keep on my toes because it's actually going to make me more efficient. Let's take a look at scores.
Okay, so I'm going to face this way so you can see directly what happens with the footwork. So we're going to go to have the same counts as the leader. So we're going to go into the back, change, forward, and now we're going to go side, close, side. From here we could repeat. So I'm going to move this way. 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. Okay, so notice here the difference from scooping, attacking with the scoop, 1, 2, 1, and now going up and sustaining up, 1, 2, drop, down, down, up, up, down. Okay, so one last time with the counts. 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. So when we couple up and put that together, it's going to make a lot more sense in the count of the valse, yeah? Shall we?
So leaders, how do we communicate that on the weights? As mentioned, it's going to be a bit of a scooping, so we're going to go a little bit down, and then we're going to arrive up and relax here. So it's going to be a bit of one palm, and then gently back here. So it's a bit of up and slightly down, and then the same thing happens, up and down. Now, what's actually a little bit tricky to lead is the quick correction of the feet. First of all, the follower, of course, should have the same understanding of the music, so should understand the intention, but also we have to lead it properly. So how do we do that? We don't actually leave our partner behind by leaving the embrace opening to the right. We take her with us, yes? So it's like one, and see this part of my embrace is really coming with me as I collect. I don't do this. Can you see? Here she will be late or she will be controlling. So I take everything with me, the arm, the embrace, and of course the communication should be better.
Okay.
So, hey, 1, 1, 1, 3, 1. So sorry, I should say 1, 2. Apologies. Again. So I'm going to push myself here. E, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. So let's show with music.
No la vida pasar el paisano, arrastrando en el suelo panteano, una loca con la vida va. Esta loca que en tiempo pasado habitara en las horas de amores, hoy esparce sus tiernos clamores en la pampa que duerme en la paz.
So, we hope this is clear. If you find it a bit challenging because it's a little bit quick, what we recommend is to say on the beats. So it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Of course, you still have to lead all these transfer of weight and on the side and going forward. Remember the technique of scooping up and over, and then here you lift, you arrive on the toes, and you go down. This is something that we explored before, so we won't actually go into too much detail because this actually has been covered in the past.
Okay, so do you want to move on? Shall I add a few tips for the followers?
You can have a few days, yeah, sure.
Okay, so
Sure, of course.
so in terms of how you're going to transfer the weight to make it elegant and gently, you want to make sure that you're always going to push from the toes and you're going to receive with a soft knee. Now going up, you're going to push from the standing leg and receive the weight on a straight leg with heel off the floor. Now when you're going down, toes, ankle and knee, yeah, to soften and to collect again. So avoid things like, yeah, so receive the weight, toes, 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 toes. So it's a much nicer way to land.
Okay, so let's take a look at another example of what we could do with valse, a little sequence, which again is going to be adapted to the rhythm of valse. So as a leader, I'm going to go forward, change my weight, and go back with the same leg, and forward, change my weight, and go back with the same leg. So basically the structure is very simple, but what is actually a little bit more difficult is the fact that I need to lead my partner to go round on my left and my right side. Right, left, right, and here I can, if I want, add a little decoration which is a front cross. 1, 2, and 3, and I add the front cross here. Note, leaders, that as I'm doing that, I'm actually changing the direction of my chest and my hips, because I want my partner to go on this side, and then invite her to go on this side here, so she's constantly changing lane from inner to outer lane, inner lane, sorry, and outer lane. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Okay, so this is the basic structure.
Okay, maybe we can show it together and then I'll give some tips for the floor.
So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can do crosses or not, it's up to you. This is just a decoration which is at the discretion of both leader and follower. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Let's show it to this angle. Here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Okay, so here you want to have tight transitions, so be careful that you don't go in to do something like that. It's not needed. It's going to be just a very tiny opening to get to the other side, to facing the other lane. And also, you don't want to do that, you don't want to do that, so you are going to be very blocky this way. You want to have the upper body remaining facing the leader, and here you're going to reposition the lower body, but you're going to have the upper body facing the same way. Yeah, so you're not going to take everything with you. Maybe we can show it one more time. And how much you're going to change in space depends on how much the leader is pivoting himself. Yeah?
So it's same for me. I'm not going to basically stay straight between hips and torso. My hips are going to go back and forth, of course, in the sequence, but my torso is going to try to stay towards my partner at all time. So that means that I'm in constant state of dissociation. I'm here, and I'm here. See, my torso is moving with my partner, but my hips are creating the space for her to pass. Right.
Maybe we can show it with music, reckon? Or
Yes.
do you want to explain a few more things?
Let's do it with music, but what I
Okay.
would like to say is that basically we are going to stay with a beat for now, just to actually show it, and then we are going to see how we adapt the rhythm to the valse time signature. Note, leaders, that the change of weight for you is very tight, but for the lady, or for the follower, is more like a side step around you, because you take her around here. So that
A
means
small one, yes, small size.
one, yes.
Very, very tiny.
so 1 and here. Know that for me, I'm basically going always to the same location, back and forth. I can of course change location if I want to, but In this case, I don't need to. Structure in place, what I'm going to do, I'm going to accelerate to catch not the 1-3 but the 1-2. That means, if you remember from earlier, it's going to be ignoring the 3 in the time signature and having 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, or 1-2, 1 full beat, 1-2, 1, 1-2, 1 full beat, 1-2, 1 and full beat. Okay, so this is what I'm going to try to catch here. That means I'm going to accelerate first. 1-2 and I relax. 1-2 and I relax. Ram pam pam yum pam pam yum pam pam yum pam 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 pam. So the only difference here is the speed, of course, and the fact that I am going to accelerate the first and the second, and then relaxing here with or without cross, up to you.
So now the acceleration is going to be felt a little bit earlier because now we want to go into that count 2. So you should definitely feel the difference and it should be very, very clear because there is more of a urgency of getting to that count 2. So a reminder that all the other counts are still there, but they are silent in the movement. So you can perfectly count 1, 2, 3, but then accelerate on the 2. Shall we show it with music together?
En los anchos de monte frondoso, la vida pasar el paisano, vagando en el suelo pampeano, una loca con la vida va. Esta loca que en tiempo pasado habitaba en las horas de amores, hoy esparce sus tiernos clamores en la pampa que duerme en la paz.
I was waiting for the phrase. Okay, so I'll start with this. So I have a little option for leaders, and this is where Vals is quite interesting, because just playing with the time signature alone is something that will add to almost like inventing a new step. You can do exactly the same step, but it will feel very different if you shift that accent in the time signature. So right here, I was placing my acceleration forward, and then I was relaxing here. But I could also do 1, 3, 1. Yes, so the acceleration can be not here, but I can actually do a bit of suspension, and the acceleration can be on the back step. 1, 3, 1. It's exactly the same, but I will need to suspend a bit after the forward step and accelerate the back step. Does that make sense?
Okay, here we can show it together.
So 1, 3, 1. 1, 3, 1. 3, 1, 1, 3, 1. Ram, pam, pam, yam, pam, pam, yam, pam, pam, yam, pam, pam. It looks different, doesn't it?
Yeah, it also feels very different in the sense that now it's not as urgent as the change of weight on count 2, so that's we're going to feel more of a scoop and a suspension with a bit of a delay. So it's just enough delay to go on count 3, so you don't want to delay too much, but this should be relatively obvious that it's different than the previous lead.
So what is of course interesting is to vary what you do with your musicality and of course the time signature. So I could, theoretically speaking, but this is a bit difficult, to mix, like have a few on 2 and then have a 3 on 3. So it would actually look a bit like this. 1, 2, 1. 1, 2, 1. 1, 2, 1. 1, 2, 1. 1, 3, 1. 1, 3, 1. 1, 3, 1. 1, 3, 1.
Completely different.
It is different, yeah.
Small change, but big difference.
So my advice to leaders is not to mix 1, 2 and 1, 3 within the same sequence. That means here I did 4 each side and then I changed. So the follower was available to change. I wouldn't do 1, 2, 1 and then 1, 3, 1 and then again change, because the change itself, you have to really be clear with your signal, and it's going to be, maybe going to be a little bit too much for the follower. It's possible, but it's challenging.
Definitely so. I think the moment you get it into one configuration, one setting, and then quickly change, she might already kind of have gotten into that automatic pilot mode. So whatever changes you want to introduce after a certain pattern, you have to be super clear.
So in terms of the lead, the difference between the first and second version leaders is really how you attack your step. The first one was 1, 2, so I have a lot of energy and I prepare before I step. I start compressing with the embrace and I say be ready because we are accelerating, okay? The second option, however, is not going to be the same. I'm going to be going a little bit relaxed here because I have plenty of time to change, but here the acceleration is going to be on the back. So basically, as I move my partner from left to right leg, I'm going to almost like start the back movement a little bit early to indicate be ready to actually step a little bit quicker this time. So of course it's all a little bit fine-tuning, which makes tango very interesting, or valse I should say in this case, which makes the valse very, very interesting and very, very playful, but also makes it more necessary to practice, of course, with a partner.
So would you like to show the music both, or you want to move on?
Let's show it to me again.
Excuse me? Totally unexpected.
what that I'm going to show you is sometimes referred to as mordida, is actually going to be the accent on 2, so I'm going to go forward, change my weight, and forward again, and then alternate. Forward, change my weight, and forward again. Left, change, left. Right, change, right. Okay? So I alternate my change of weight, once on the left, once on the right. So this would be on the beat, without the time signature of the valse. However, I'm going to start using this time signature to go 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. So how do I indicate that change of weight? Basically the same technique as before, a little bit of scooping and a sudden up and over. So the attack again is going to be a little bit more push from the back leg, and I'm going to do one pump. Yeah? So it's almost like a sudden stop after this acceleration, which makes your partner want to change leg because she needs to recover the balance. So you don't place her off balance, but the energy in her body will make her want to put the other foot down, therefore she changes the weight. This is how you did it.
Okay.
So sorry first, 1, change 1, and then 1, change 1. 1, change 1, and 1, change 1. Now if I do it with mordida, 1 and 1, 1 and 1, 1 and 1, 1 and 1. Pom pom, 1, pom pom, 1, pom pom, pom pom, and finish it.
So, in terms of what's happening with the upper body, for me it's clear because of the dissociation that is happening, the timing of dissociation and the impulse. Those things together make me want to transfer the weight. So I don't feel any forced thing via the embrace. It's just because the leader is doing that with his own step, the consequence is going to make me change the weight. So there is nothing with the arms that is forced to force me to change the weight. It's more of a consequence of what happens with the leading, yeah? If that makes sense. Now when you change the weight, have your feet together, so we have tight positions rather than having this space in between. It's also more difficult to determine where the weight is, and it's quite fast, so the clearer you are with your axis forwards when your weight has been transferred, to clearly indicate via your center to the leader that you've transferred the weight. This is going to help him as well.
So let's have a look at how it looks with music, and we'll start slow and then we'll add the mordida, the rhythm of the valse.
En los anchos de monte frondosos no la vida pasar el paisano, arrastrando en el suelo pampeano, una loca con la vida va. Esta loca que en tiempo pasado habitaba en las horas de amores, hoy esparce sus tiernos clamores en la pampa que duerme en la paz.
what we did today. One last tip for me, for leaders, for the last part, which is the little mordida, is to really work from the core. So it's not like you accelerate your feet, because the follower will not feel what you do with your feet, but she will feel what you do with your center. So if you need to accelerate, remember to really stretch here and to have a little bit of weight on the toe, so your weight will be up. If you are a bit relaxed in the embrace and you do this, she might actually strip or you might actually touch her foot, so try to avoid this by really having this stretch here. 1, 2, and 1, 2, and so on and so forth.
And one tip for followers would be to really discharge the weight on the floor when you change that, when you do that quick transfer of the weight. So don't suspend it via the embrace, because if you do, the leader might not feel where your weight is. So really try and send quickly the indication via the hip when you transfer the weight.
One last, and then we do our little demonstration. As a leader, it's very absolutely okay to play with the beat only. So you can start a sequence slowly and then add this element of valse signature as we did today. So you can play in that way in 1 only, or 1, 2 only, or 1, 3 only. And of course 1, 2, 3, but this is something that we are not covering for the beginners.
Alright, time to dance.
Okay. Viaggi. So we hope it was fun. Let's see you in 15 minutes roughly after the break for the second part for intermediate and up.
See you guys.
See you soon. a very warm welcome back to your Vals lesson today. We hope you enjoy it and it's actually useful for you to discover the concepts behind and also what you could do in terms of sequences. So this is your second part. This is for intermediate and advanced dancers, and what we're going to do now is show you slightly more complex sequences, which are sometimes called cadenas in Vals. Cadenas means chains, and have a bit of an art around them, because the principle of a cadena is it's a step or a sequence that you can repeat over and over again. So that has one particular condition, is that the step you end with is the same as the step you start with. Or in another way, the configuration of the couple at the end of the sequence is the same as when you start, therefore you can repeat over and over again. And actually this is very, very interesting for Vals, because Vals itself is repeating itself. If you look at the harmony, the melody and the rhythm in the Vals, is always like da 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 da. So there's lots of going in and out, so it's a bit rounded, it's a bit circular, the Vals. This is why we want to use a lot of pivots, as we'll see today. But it's also repeating itself, therefore you want to repeat that step. So as a little comment for leaders, my recommendation is, when you know a little sequence which works well for Vals, if it's a cadena, repeat it. Don't just do it once and do something else. Try to repeat a couple of times, because it's actually very pleasant for the follower. She understands your idea and then she starts playing with it. Remember that when you do a sequence, it's going to take once or twice for the follower to start having a little bit of playful decorations, and she understands the concept, the context of your sequence, and therefore she starts playing with it. So always a good idea to repeat a few times and not to be too quick in exiting that sequence, especially if it's a cadena.
Okay, should we demonstrate maybe some examples?
Yes,
of
okay.
cadenas?
Alright. So we'll start with the Americana position, and I'm going to start by sending my partner forward, sending her around me, and very quickly pivoting in axis. So let's show it very slowly first. I assume that I start from Americana position, which is right here, as you know. And I'm going to do a forward step. Now the step is not really a step, it's actually a fake step. I only transfer half of the weight, but I send my partner around and I open the left part of my embrace, which makes her change the lane from inner to outer lane. And as I'm here, I'm going to go forward, and I'm going to use, of course, I'm in the cross system at this stage, because I'm going forward with the left and she goes back with the left. And I'm going to use at the same time a lead for her to change the weight, and I'm going to use that time to pivot in axis before you repeat the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Note, leaders, that is quite a fair amount of pivot to do here, so I use my technique for pivoting, using the hip going around. And note here that if I show you this angle here, I'm not going very, very much forward with the hips, but I send my partner. Why is it important? Because if I don't do that, if I go a bit forward with my axis, I'm going to send my partner away, and then the step I have to do is gigantic. It's not possible, it's too much. So I'm going to really make sure that my transfer of axis is only the middle. I use my back to send her around me, and I go forward, little pivot here, change of voice for the follower, and repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the, I would say, simple version.
Okay, so it's very, very clear here. The moment I transfer the weight, this is indicated, and so I feel via the frame. So just a little bit, there's no pushing, it's just a little bit of a tilt. And this is enough for me to understand that we're changing the weight before going with the forward step. Now, for that forward step followed by that big pivot and the side step, it's really important that we receive as much pull as possible on our right side, equivalent to the left side of the leader's embrace, because we're going to have a lot of pivot to go around the leader with that side step. So the idea is to go around the leader's axis as much as possible and not take a side step too far away from him, because that means it's going to create too much opening in the embrace. So now when the leader is pulling for that big pivot and side step, we need to create a contra pull so that our frames stay connected and I am not just extending the arm, because this is not going to give any reaction for that side step, yeah?
Let's show when it doesn't work. So this wouldn't work if the follower doesn't activate the left arm, and as Paula just mentioned, extends the arm as we try to pull her around. Because then it feels like I can't make her go around me and she stays away. Let's show it again. So be careful not to do this, followers and leaders. See here, no connection, and it's actually too far. So important for both of us to keep a very compact embrace, and the embrace is a little bit, there's no tension, but it's a bit like squeezed inwards to have that amount of reaction. And that amount of reaction here. Okay, so let's show it with music. Yeah?
Definitely.
So, one thing I'd like to mention for leaders is that element of rotation. So, as Paula mentioned, there is a lead for how to change the weight. It's a bit hard to see, but basically if I show it this way, with a slight angle, I'm going to rotate myself within the embrace, but as I do, I finish with a little bit of tilt this way. So she feels that she has to change the weight, but I don't. Yeah, so it's the embrace taking her this way, but without me changing the weight. It's going to be helped by that speed of the rotation and that momentum that we have in the body. 1, 2. Yeah, a little bit of this to indicate, please go. I don't have to overdo it. Be careful that if you do too much, she might start doing a side step and then you're in trouble because she's here but you can't step because of the foot, yet she's going away. So that actually is going to complicate the situation. So 1 and 2. A little bit of dip without changing weight yourself. One thing that we can also add as a leader is a sakada. So let's take a look at the sakada as a little addition to that configuration.
And in a bit, I'm going to give you some tips that I didn't have the chance yet.
So, sakada. I'm going to do exactly the same leaders. I'm going to go even more around and see my foot and my leg stays where it is. So as I transfer the weight, I have the possibility to push that leg. So let me show you again. 1 and 2. There is sakada here. Okay, let me share with you. So the sakada here.
A bit of support definitely.
I wanted to show my leg, maybe not the best moment. So my leg here is really pushing hard on the floor, and that kind of ejects the leg of the follower. Here, 1. And here, the thing to do, of course, is see my foot is staying here because I need like a strong bounce. And I just need to go around it, and there's a little bit of pivot to the left. So this is what actually is going to be feeling a little bit more complicated, because suddenly you have to go around that foot. You didn't have that problem before, because the situation before was a straight leg, straight step. Whereas here, because of the amount of rotation, you are increasing the amount of rotation of the follower. You have to go around that foot. That means you have to pivot even more before you do the next one. So I would suggest you do it softly first. Sakada, pom pom. Here, sakada, pom pom. Okay.
So, what I wanted to say is, it's going to help so much both leaders and followers when you increase the compression of the left side of the embrace, so towards the leader's back. So the moment of that rotation, we are going to feel a very strong centrifugal force that you can use to then create more density, but also create more speed. Yeah, so it's a really, really nice feeling when we are engaging all of the embrace, but when it's necessary. And why is it necessary? Because we both need to have that contra pull that we were talking about, and not only from one side of the embrace, from both sides of the embrace. So it's going to be a completely different experience. If I can turn you around. If I am not engaging in this side, let's say that I'm here in this position, which is wrong, here it's going to be impossible for leader to use the back to use that pull during rotation. So now that he's got that available, I can feel that he's actually going to rotate, he's going to press against my arm here. You see, so it's really compact, and there's a little bit of a feeling of a micro mini colgada. So we are not really in colgada, but the feeling is similar, as if we could go if we wanted to. Yeah, and that generates a really nice qualitative movement.
So the leader, my sensation is I go forward, but it's like almost like a fade forward step to stand the follower. As soon as she's going forward, I already take my step back, or I go back with my back actually, to create that pull in the embrace to facilitate this bigger rotation. Now, one thing that you may have noticed, leaders, is that in this configuration of the sakada, I'm helping myself by displacing my left foot a little bit more to the right. What does it mean? Before I was going 1, I was pivoting here, or pivoting my partner, and I was always going forward, having this little rotation, and I repeat. Now with the sakada, because of the rotation involved, what might be working better for you is not to do 1 and 2, but 1 and 2. See, I'm repositioning my left. This is going to increase that rotation, and therefore it's going to help me catch the sakada. Without it, it's a bit difficult.
It's nice because then it's the moment of retraction from the leader's axis. So this is when the expansion of the embrace increases.
Look at the difference between if I do or if I don't. Here, I'm going to, let's see, maybe this angle. I'm not going to do it. 1, 2. Okay? So my partner is roughly here. But if I displace my left in the back, she's going to do a bigger rotation. 1, 2. See how much bigger I can get just by displacing the left to the back. So I increase that chance for the bigger pivot, therefore the sakada becomes easier. Yeah?
Yeah.
Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. and so on and so forth. Okay. Any other comments?
I think for now, I think the most important thing to take for this exercise is to really use that pull and contra pull. I can't say that enough. However, when you feel like you're going into kolgada, there's not enough time for kolgada, okay? So do not take that leg off the floor, that's one thing. So keep the right leg on the floor, so when you have that side step round, you can then arrive quickly again onto that side step and you don't delay, because remember, it's quick. We do not have much time, we do have some time in that moment, but then we have to be ready to change the weight and repeat the Americana sequence. So leave that free leg on the floor and really send your weight to the floor, discharging down, so nice and heavy, and not to an aerial, because this is what's going to cause the potential delays, isn't it?
Yes, for what I feel is Paula stays compact in embrace, and I don't feel she goes back with the back, for example. I don't feel the energy dispersed. It's quite around me, and actually we work together to keep that energy around us. The energy of the couple actually stays within that circularity around us, or within the cylinder, as I like to call it, around the couple.
Okay.
Music.
En los anchos de monte frondoso, no mira pasar el paisano, vagando en el suelo pampeano, una loca con la vida paz. Esta loca que el tiempo pasado, habitaba en las horas de amores, hoy esparce sus tiernos clamores, en la pampa que duerme en la paz.
So, couple extra tips for this to work. So how do I displace my leg to the back? I have just enough weight on the front leg to have that rotation. So you can practice if you like. 1, 2, be careful it's not forward and then rotation and back. The rotation happens with still a fair amount of weight to the back, just enough to the front to be able to pivot. So my left is actually staying on the floor, I don't try to lift it. It's this rotation. If I go too much forward again, remember that you're going to send your partner away and it's going to be a problem for you. So really important to stay to the back of your axis as much as you can, just enough to have that possibility to pivot. Now one last thing here, I keep the inner thighs together. That actually helps as well. If I start opening here, I will feel that I have much less control. So both my legs are straight and with the inner thigh connected using association of course. Okay. So let's carry on with our next example of what you could do for like a cadena, valse sequence. It's going to be an interesting one which will send your partner around you in a circular motion. And the interesting part is that the follower and the leader are going to be on different times. I'm going to start with backward show. And I'm going to place my partner onto my right. I'm going to come here and I'm going to pull my partner and send her around. So what's interesting here is I will step on every 2 steps, every 2 beats I would say, and she steps on every beat. 1, 2 for me, 1, 2 and for her, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1.
Okay, so here is really important that I'm kept at the leader's right side so that I have space for my footwork to get around, and the pattern is going to repeat. So let's have a look at what the pattern is.
So you position yourself. Okay, good. Yeah.
So we have right, left, 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 right, left. Yeah, so my priority here is to stay on the leader's right side, so I have space to maneuver around. And pattern has to clearly not change until I am taken out of the position. Now notice that I am going to have, in order to create a bit of that rebound energy for this particular cadena, I'm going to have the attitude of giving my back to the leader's arm and lay back a little bit with my center. So when I say lay back, obviously not this way, but give your lower center away into the leader's arm so that it can feel where your weight is and keep you much more easily on the right side. If I'm attacking forward and invading the space, it's going to be very hard for him to keep me on that lane.
So the idea, leaders and followers, is to create a situation where we use each other's centrifugal force. We really rotate around each other under the concept of the revolving doors in a hotel. So it's this sensation, so we help each other, and I'm constantly pulling my partner with my back, not so much my arms because it's going to be too much, but I'm pulling here to say please come around here, and I keep this constant association, right, left, and so on, constantly associated towards the right, and making sure that my back is pulling her at all times. So I go into this configuration, and of course here we are in cross system. One.
So pull away a little bit with the embrace, so rather than attacking too quickly at the front, because what's that going to do is going to actually interrupt the elastic from staying in an expanded position that we need to use for that centrifugal force. So do not invade the space at the front, and this is valid for both leaders and followers.
Absolutely. So when I go around my partner, I make sure that I don't go towards her. So look at this. I'm going to initiate that sequence with a backward show, and the idea is not to go too close to her, because if I do that, then she cannot pass because of my hips. So without exaggerating, I'm going to place my foot here, and here I'm going to already use my back to pull her forward, and she has plenty of space. And that creates that little bit of elasticity here.
Mm-hmm.
When I say in terms of embrace, the arm to the left and to the right for the follower are having a bit of a push against each other. This is very important for the follower to be receiving information from the leader. If, for example, you have your arm a bit soft, then I will probably not be able to push you in time, and this is a problem for the leader, because if we can't make her step in time, then suddenly we have no space to step. So there will be a little bit of a panic moment when you try to avoid the lady's foot, That might be because one of you, this arm is a bit too soft.
Yeah, so we try to match the level of resistance that we receive. So if we are receiving a lot of, well, I wouldn't say tension, but if we are receiving a lot of presence, okay, or a lot of push or a lot of pull, we try to match the same amount so we can meet in the middle. If one of the parts is giving more than the other, this is going to create a disconnection in one of the parts of the embrace.
Now, one thing that I need to mention for leaders is the fact that we are going to use the 1, 2, 3. So we are not going to use 1, 2 or 1, 3, but the old 3, 1, 2, 3. That means that I constantly move. Now you might have noticed that this sequence is actually, the lady is going to do 4 steps in order to go back. That means that you need 3 full sequence to come back to the song, if that makes sense. This is why we tend to repeat it. It works beautifully for valse, but you need to understand the structure. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and so on. I think it's easier with music.
Yeah,
Probably.
definitely. Abstract.
En los anchos de monte frondoso, una vida pasar el paisano, vagando en el suelo pampeano, una loca con la vida paz. Esta loca que en tiempo pasado, habitaba en las horas de amores, hoy esparce sus tiernos clamores, en la pampa que duerme en la paz.
Alright, okay, so let's show you one more thing. Basically what we are going to do here is we use the aguja on the left or the right, and the right, and we make it a little bit of a cadena that we repeat. So I'm going to go into cross system, and I'm going to invite my partner to go around me and forward, and invite my partner around me. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. So what we need to understand here for leaders, first of all, we are constantly in cross system. So we are going to change our weight as she goes to the side, and we go with the left on the outer lane. Now, to actually invite our partner to go in the aguja, 2 things need to happen. First of all, your step before the aguja needs to be a little bit longer. Why? Imagine that you're here and you do a short step. So just do your normal back step. If you do a short step, there's no way that this leg can go around you because you're actually taking that space. So it's still possible, but you go this way and not around. And the idea for the aguja is to center this direction. So we keep that direction even though she's rotating around us. So this is the first part. The second part is to indicate the aguja early in the process so that she doesn't want to collect. So if she collects, it will look like this. Here she collects, and then for her to step is very important. So here it's like, oh, right, so you need to maintain that element of circularity when you do the aguja.
And also grounding, guys, yes. So here there is grounding. So the grounding means I won't be collecting the leg. I'm going to leave it at that position. And now with the rotation, my leg is going to go around. There's no time to collect. Same thing here. Same thing there. So the grounding is essential in order for me not to collect each time.
Yeah, so the flex of the knee is going to be the indication for her to stay a little bit down and therefore not to, she doesn't have the time, or the indication to collect. If it's on the other side, note that this situation is a bit different, so let me show you the aguja on the other side. Here, in my semi-cross system, I'm not going to do this, guys. I'm not going to go forward and then try to center there, because this actually I've broken the element of circularity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat, quote, by going towards her to increase that sensation of rotation. So look at this. So she's on this leg here. I'm not going forward. I'm going to her back. Therefore, there's rotation here. Do you see that? So I'm going a little bit diagonal to my right, almost aiming for her back leg. So my leg, my front leg, which is the left, is going to be quite close to her back leg. And that element of rotation will allow me to create space for her to pass here on my right.
Now, one element that's going to be probably underlooked when you start doing this sequence, because you want to try and get the position of the legs and the legs working. But one thing that is going to add a lot, if you already start working with it, is the circularity of the embrace. So I try to drive, once I have the indication to go around the leader, I'm going to bring all of my embrace around with quite a lot of energy, because if I do that, it's going to help adding more circularity for the next transition. So I have to be very active here in my following with my frame. So what do I mean by that? Is there any way we can go a little bit closer to the camera with this sequence? Okay, so now when I'm going back here, you actually copied me, so maybe let's do that position here. Okay, now when I'm going around, I'm not just going with the lower body around, and that's important too. I'm pivoting my standing leg to get the leg around, but you want to have to bring the right side of the embrace with a lot of energy. So it's not just that, attacking with the lower body. You're going to bring the frame around, because that's going to add to complete the turn and help the transition to the next side. Same thing when we are on the next aguja with the right leg forward. So we're not just going to enter with that free leg, we're going to enter with rotation from the left. So we have right and left, and that is going to already prepare the next direction. So this is going to help to add a lot of connection to the frame, and I think the leader would agree with that.
Yes, as a matter of fact, this specific sequence will not work without this. I feel that if the lady is passive in the way she walks, I'm going to feel like I'm pulling her all the time and she's always late. So that element of dissociation as she steps is going to be crucial to maintain that element of, let's say, connection in the embrace in the couple, but also speed, because we're going to play a little bit with speed here. So
keep
quite
the
crucial.
frame, yeah, so it's really important. Keep the frame alive as you enter on that new direction. Don't forget the frame behind, but keep it alive almost as if you are driving. And I'm careful when I say that. I'm not anticipating. I'm still waiting for a suggestion of the direction. But once I got that request, then I can drive it a little bit more, yeah?
I think it comes down to the very, very fundamental tango technique where the follower should not be passively stepping into her steps or pivoting. Once she understands, she needs to really use the entire body to go, either in a step or rotation. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is exactly what happens here. Here, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. So, in terms of timing now, what we can try to do is to play with the valse time signature. So I'm going to try to accelerate a little bit the follower, assuming that her steps are not too big, and of course the size of the space you have is going to be a big factor for this. So it will not always work, but if you have a bit of space, hopefully bigger than what we have now, it's going to be much, much easier. So let's take a look. So I'm going to go into the same configuration here, but here is going to be quicker to lead that step here. The side step is going to be quicker. So if I do it without stopping, it's going to be 1, really 1, 1, really 1, 1, really 1. Okay?
Maybe you can show it with music?
Yeah. Let's take a look at one last example that we can play with, which will be our last example today, as I mentioned, which is going to be interesting as well. We are going to use the same idea of a little bit of acceleration, but also a lot of rotation. So I'm going to start with a change of lane to the inner lane, entry to outro, which we have covered before, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. So the lady changes her weight, and I'm going to do a sakada here, big enough to invite her to enter our space. And here we repeat because we are back to square one. So the idea is to go into that change of weight for the follower, sakada with the left, and then a lot of rotation, and I'm going to open, and I'm going to dissociate to the left, so the lady is going to feel, or the follower is going to feel pulled forward by my chest and my embrace, and she's going to be invited to do a sakada. I'm going to receive that information, pivot, and do another one. So as she does the sakada, for her it's going to be a hero, or I should say a half hero, to the left. So let's show it slowly first. It's going to be here, sakada, here, and then hero, and then repeat here. One, two, three.
So this is going to feel a little bit strange to go into that sakada for follow-up because it's unusual to go into that sakada with the side step. Now, one thing that I would recommend is once you feel the lead, do not hesitate. See if the leader is suggesting something, it's because he's waiting for you to do exactly what he's asking. So don't be afraid. Enter in the space. Now, how you enter into that sakada, the space is a little bit limited. However, if you already indicate with the energy of the frame that you're going to enter, this is creating a little bit more space and time for that leg. So do not invade right away with that free leg into the sakada, but go through a little bit of projection and push from the standing leg to have a proper entry to sakada. Don't just collapse with that forward leg. We know it's fast, but should be enough time for you to add that circularity of the frame. So don't go linear attack with the leg, but go with the rotation of the frame. So let me show what moments I'm talking about. Here, so you see that it's a little bit too close to the camera, so you can't see. See, when I'm entering in the sakada here, avoid entering too soon with the upper body, but go through that projection, and the frame is already attacking with circularity to help the rest of the turn. And I think the leader can feel also this as a help to resolve the situation.
That helps a lot, because what we don't want as a leader is for the follower to go too quickly into this and the rest, because remember that as the follower has stepped onto her right leg, she needs to rotate on that right leg. So we need to receive that sakada, but with control. What I'm trying to say here is, we just do the sakada here, she's going to enter, and we need to use that to pivot into a hero. Of course, we're going to have to pivot ourselves as well. And so on and so forth. So as I said, this takes a bit of space, so hopefully it will work for you guys in your space, and the bigger the space, the easier it gets. Here it's a little bit tricky because of the space we have, but we'll try to keep it a little bit tighter.
Okay, I think it's time to show it with music. Yeah?
Alright, so let's show it with music, and we'll conclude today's lesson. Alright, we'll try to practice.
Y en los anchos de montes frondosos, no la mira pasar el paisano, vagando en el suelo pampeano, una loca con la vida paz. Esta loca que en tiempo pasado, habitaba en las horas de amores, hoy en valse sus tiernos clamores, en la pampa que duerme en la paz.
Alright, time for us to do a little demonstration with everything we've done today. Improvisation on the song which is from B.I.G. Loca de Amor.
tiernos clamores en la pampa que duerme en la paz.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it. Have a great evening.
A great evening, guys. See you soon. And if you want to get in touch with us for any inquiries, including private lessons and so on, now that everything is started in person again, all the information is on the links of these videos. See you soon. Enjoy. Bye.
See you soon.